Our big tale starts off from a somewhat small corner in the middle of this British town. There we're taken to this old-looking house where this old woman comes down and checks her mail at night. She walks away, but we meet this little child, sneak into the door from the comfort of the underside of the rug. She then monologues about the witching hour.
It's the witching hour.
The hour which the boogeyman comes out to party, so she locks the front door. She says that people go missing because of this so-called boogeyman, so she turns the clock's hands around and gets the mail. We come to know this little girl as Sophie, and we'll be seeing a lot of her in this film. We hear monologue about when is the real witching hour while she heads down the halls. She fixes the mail she picked up, and then she hears some voices outside, so she takes a peek. In the streets, some ragamuffins are messing around near a puddle and making a lot of noise. Sophie gets annoyed with the noise they're making.
Oi!
So she tells them to shut up. They try to talk to her, but she immediately threatens to snitch.
I'll call the coppers.
Then a large shadow appears in the streets, while Sophie's riddled by her insomnia, but she eventually gets to bed with the other orphans. She puts on her reading glasses and reads a book, but it sounds like someone's coming, so she pretends to be asleep. The threatening person then checks the room briefly, and then she flocks off, so Sophie's free to read that book again. Suddenly, her cute cat senses something, so it goes by the balcony, and Sophie follows. It's just gazing into other cats' meowings around a dumpster, but upon close inspection, a big hand comes out from the street. It picks up that dumpster and puts it upright. Then that hand leads to a big man. Sophie sees it, and the giant looks back at her. It stands up and walks towards her, so she panics and rushes to her bed. She's hiding under the blankets, but that giant takes her away. Soon she's getting dragged around by that giant as it comes near a car. He disguises himself as a roadblock. This man's walking down the street. He turns off the lights. Another car passes by, disguises himself as cargo. This lady comes out of her home. He turns into a tree. The giant's a master of stealth. Soon it jumps over the highway, then freely runs into the fields. He comes to the beach where he skips around using this cliff. Then into a portal hidden in the clouds. It takes Sophie and him to a mountain with a few rocks here and there and some ruins. They reach a cave, and it looks to be this guy's home, because he just suddenly slows down, puts some things down, and then lights a fire. He places Sophie and the blanket down on a tree branch, and then sharpens his knife as he hums something incomprehensible. Sophie takes the chance to sneak through the ceiling and then go to the window, but she's clumsy like any other kid and makes quite the racket. The giant notices this and heads in her direction. He says there's nowhere to go unless she could fly.
There ain't no place to go.
Now, I thought this be a friendly giant, but he's saying that he's hungry, and he puts Sophie in a frying pan.
Where am I?
The giant says she's in giant country, to which Sophie's in utter disbelief about. Suddenly, some more growling sounds are heard.
What's that?
And the giant says that there's a vicious lot of giants strolling about outside. They don't sound too friendly either, so Sophie does the logical thing and begs for her life.
Please don't eat me.
The giant's amused by all of it because he says he's really not into the whole human meat thing. Well, the giant seems remorseful about his dumb action, and he thinks Sophie's parents might be worried sick.
I don't have a mother or father.
But she says that she's an orphan. Turns out that the whole building was an orphanage. Well, the good news is that she hates the orphanage. But the bad news rolling in might be that this guy's the only friendly vegetarian giant around, because these other big heads would totally devour her. Sophie's now stuck in giant country, and she wants to know why this giant took her.
Why did you bring me here?
Well, he did that so that Sophie wouldn't snitch about the existence of giants, or else there would be expeditions in a war between humans and giants. Wait, did Isayama write this? Anyways, Sophie says she won't snitch, but the giant says otherwise. Well, you can't blame the guy. She was talking about snitching not 14 minutes ago. All this results in the giant not letting her go.
Please, take me home.
To protect the secret of the existence of giants. So she has to stay here for all eternity, or until she rots into a husk, whichever comes first. The giant gives her back her blanket, but she threatens to run away. Well, he warns her against that because there's ferocious carnivorous giants lurking in giant country. So he gets her to stay on top of the mast of the ship, and then Sophie corrects his British accent, which he just comes off as being rude and hurts his feelings. She apologizes. Then the giant rummages through his belongings. He takes out a bottle of glowing blue energy, so Sophie gets curious about it.
What's in those jars?
He claims it was a bottle full of dreams. Good timing with the face reveal. The giant tries to read the tiny book, and from that and the giant's calm and soothing voice, she falls asleep. Seeing this opportunity, the giant gets the satchel, goes outside and opens a bridge mechanism, where it leads to jars and bottles full of colorful glowing energies. Maybe those are dreams too. Well, some of the other colored jars make ominous sounds. Then the giant experiments with one of them. Hours later, Sophie wakes up from the rocking and snoring of that giant sleeping below her. But his rocky sleeping pattern causes the shipbed to open the window. Sophie grabs the opportunity to escape, but this mountain is revealed to be a giant and stops her in her tracks. Listen to your elders, kids, because Sophie didn't, and now she's this giant's takeout. She's begging for this nice giant to help, but too bad. She's swallowed whole, and roll those credits. Nah, it was just a bad dream, caused by the nice giant. He confirms it, and then the giant puts Sophie on top of the table and warns about the dangers from other giants. After his lecture, the giant drinks a Mountain Dew, Frobscottle. Sophie notices the Frobscottle's bubbles going down, and she's wondering about this, to which the giant replies that if the bubbles go up, it'd be a disastrous result. Well, opposite to that result is, well, the obligatory fart joke, where the giant drinks a lot of Frobscottle, making it like nitrous oxide comes out of that wrinkly tushy. He's having a jolly good time, but a bigger giant hears all of it from outside and stomps towards this nice giant's house. He's angrily curious why this nice giant is so chatty this morning.
Who is you jabbling to?
While Sophie hides. The big giant has a boo-boo.
I has a boo-boo.
So at first, this nice one doesn't want to tend to it, but the big lump throws an earth-shattering temper tantrum, and the nice giant is forced to take care of his boo-boo. The nice guy makes Sophie hide behind the cauldron of water while he distracts the big oaf. The big dude, however, smells something new in his home. Sophie hides in a weird giant cucumber while this big guy sniffs all around. He traces it to the cucumber, which he was supposed to eat, but the nice one just makes him change his mind because he's only a meat eater. And the big giant leaves with a Mountain Dew and tells the nice one that he's an insult to giant people.
You is an insult to giant people.
Well, now that the coast is clear, Sophie slowly and disgustingly crawls out of that cucumber. The nice giant then takes her to the Dream Collection Cave. Will she be put into a jar like a warm pony? Nah, not really. She's being washed by this nice guy instead. She then dries up near a furnace, and the nice giant gives her some rags to wear, also with some privacy to change clothes. The giant finds a tree stump and gently prepares her stuff there. And then he comes back to Sophie wearing a nice red velvet jacket. There's something about this jacket though, and the giant doesn't say what it is. He ends up taking her to a tree hole from earlier while he says he's gonna go to work, catching some dreams. She doesn't want to be alone though, and insists on going with this guy, but he leaves her alone. Inside, Sophie's gazing upon the magical appearances of physical dreams in jars. She eventually finds a hole to crawl out of, and she finds a cable to latch onto and go to the nice giant. Since they're gonna live together for all eternity, she says they can't keep secrets from each other. So she spills her pretty secrets. Stuff like lying, sneaking, and stealing comes out of her mouth, but that giant just reels her back to the tree. Stubborn as she is, she comes back to the nice giant and gaslights him about the big giant coming back to eat her. Left with no choice, the nice guy lets her go with him. Once they step outside, he shows her all the other giants are sleeping.
Hold your breath.
And that they would have to be extra quiet, or they'd wake up and turn her into a KFC chicken nugget. The nice giant slowly makes his way around the other giants, but the last one holds his leg. This causes all the other giants to wake up. Sophie runs for cover, because she hadn't been spotted yet. The nice giant is at the grasp of the flesh lump eater, the big giant leader from earlier. He's wondering where the nice giant's going, and he says he's off to work. Flesh Lump Eater doesn't like this, because he might attract a giant hunt. Since they're awake, they begin to use this nice giant as their personal football and toss him around. And then they begin to toy with him like he's some part of rollerblade derby. Just at the peak of their fun, the clouds set in, and it turns out these giants hate the rain. They all panic, taking cover during drizzle. So our boy uses the chance to sneak Sophie away using his satchel. Little did he know that Flesh Lump Eater found Sophie's blanket and he smelled a human being. On the trek to the mountains, Sophie says he shouldn't take that bullying from Flesh Lump Eater and his pals, but it sounds like he has no choice. They make it to the peak of the mountain, and there they pass through a portal. It's night over here, and the nice giant says they're in the dream country now. The giant tells her some funny stories about some funny animals, and then he lets her down. She heads to a nearby lake in front of a tree, and there she could see some dazzling reflections. The nice giant says there was a time someone called him the Big Friendly Giant, or BFG for short. He then jumps into the lake and ends up in a mirror universe. Sophie then tells her name.
My name is Sophie.
And she also takes the plunge to Mirror World. In that dream world, the tree is filled with lights. The BFG says that some dreams fall from the sky here and into the tree. He then spots a fizz wizard and tries to catch the agile glowing thing. Sophie helps him catch it, and then BFG offers to let her hold it. She puts the little golden dream inside a jar, but then the fizz wizard draws a picture of a person with glasses. Is that Lennon? Soon Sophie's helping him catch other dreams as she's running after him. After quite the chase, she catches a red dream, which the BFG says is a troggle humper, meaning it's a bad dream. He locks it up in a special jar, and then the BFG suddenly disappears. Turns out he was warped back to where they came from. He helps her get out of the mirror world. And the next thing on their list? Dream blowing. No idea what that is, but they soon come back to the human world. BFG says giants don't have parents.
Giants don't have mothers or fathers.
And they might be as old as Earth itself. And then he takes an instrument and blows dreams into this family. Apparently he blew some good dreams into these people. That's nice. And after the job's done, they notice the other giants are trying to look for him. He realizes that they're after Sophie, so he leaves Sophie back at the orphanage. But she wants to go with him, and he says it's not safe because these other giants are looking for her. He tells her a story of an old friend that he had before, a little boy. He was the original owner of Sophie's red jacket, and that the boy experienced that same adventure Sophie had with BFG, but he basically got eaten. Despite Sophie's brave protests, the BFG leaves her, and she walks back to the orphanage. She feels that he's still watching over her, thanks to BFG's great sense of hearing, so she tests that theory via an attempted sewer slide. Suddenly, BFG catches her and with no choice left, takes her back to giant country. Now back at his place, they're trying to think of a plan to overthrow the giants. Then they hear Flesh Lump Eater calling out to BFG.
Run!
And approaching. Sophie hides, while all the giants surround BFG. Flesh Lump Eater reveals that he knows that BFG has a human with him.
You has a bean.
They all sniff that blanket and start searching for her in the cave in a destructive fashion. Of course, BFG is quite angry with him, literally shattering his dreams. Sophie's narrowly dodging their line of sight, struggling to hide from one place to another. And then she stumbles upon a human-sized room, also in a tree hole. She explores a bit, and judging from the notes, this might be the boys' room. BFG's ticked off and chases all the giants out with a molten iron rod and a bucket of water. Sophie's safe, but this guy's house is in ruins. BFG says he hates the other giants and wants to tell them off, but he always slurs his words. He needs some cheering up, so Sophie says that he talks beautifully, and BFG gladly takes that compliment. Suddenly, Sophie has a plan. They have to go to the Queen. They're kinda too late. Well, whatever. They prepare a troggle humper, the scariest bad dream they have created so far. The plan is to get the Queen to have a nightmare that giants are eating children all over England. They put their personal touches on it and then mix it up. Sophie says the Queen's got to see the BFG, but he sternly declines. So they get moving to Buckingham Palace, where they're sneaking around guards. After that tactical espionage, they arrive at the Queen's windowsill, and the troggle humper goes. They can audibly see the Queen having a nightmare, and then she wakes up from that horror. Queen Elizabeth II, totally not a bad time for her to be featured, gets the attention of one of her maids, Mary. She offers the Majesty some tea, and with that tea, the Queen graphically describes her dream. And Mary sees in the newspaper that a lot of children have gone missing. Mary tells her that the dream might have come true, so the Queen orders for the curtains to be drawn up. They find Sophie, and the Queen is having a really weird episode of deja vu. Now that the Queen is caught up, Sophie tries to call for BFG, but he doesn't show up. Calling one more time, and with the promise that the Queen and his guards wouldn't hurt him, he comes out of the bushes. They're all shocked, but then the Queen's guards surround him with rifles in hand and aim. The Queen's asking Mr. Tibbs to make the guards stand down, so they all lower their weapons. BFG approaches her, introduces himself, and offers his assistance in combating the other man-eating giants. The Queen then pulls a few strings of her own, and Sophie gets properly groomed. Soon the two girls go to a meeting in the palace, and they even let BFG inside. Looks like they're gonna have a proper royal meal, and the giant is properly sat down in this big room. All the servants in utter awe at this giant, and the grub comes in. A lot of food and a lot of servants to carry it all, in fact. The giant's amazed with all the food, and the cooks are happy that he likes it. They even pour him his coffee, but he doesn't like it, so he spits that out. Instead, he offers him some frobscotle. Suddenly, the Queen's generals arrive, and then she briefs them that at night they will be mobilized, along with BFG, to lead the way to Giant's country. A good old conquest. BFG's given a map of the UK, and he points beyond the map. Well, the Queen understands that her forces will only set foot in Giant country once. Then BFG accurately pours the people of England each a glass of frobscotle. That beverage gets passed around, and a bunch of men with bagpipes begin playing. They all soon raise their glasses and toast to BFG. Don't worry, Doom Guy believes in BFG too. They all take a drink of it, and suddenly pause, and begin having such an explosive fart fest, even the dogs using their butts to rock it out of there. With the Queen amused, it's time to head to Giant country. The BFG makes his way up there, and behind him, the Royal Air Force. Soldiers packed inside choppers as they all follow BFG back to the sky portal. Once inside, the Air Force's avionics go haywire, but they safely make it. Sophie then keeps asking the BFG if he has a plan.
I was asking if you had a plan.
Well, she's about to find out, because back at BFG's place, he takes out that troggle humper Sophie caught, and it looks like he's planning to give the Giants a really rotten nightmare. As it's his way of helping the Queen's forces, BFG then recaptures the nightmare in his mixing apparatus. All there's left to do now is wait. And where else is a perfect place to wait, other than a view overlooking the sleeping Giants? Sophie's asking about her golden dream that BFG keeps, and he says it's about Sophie's future life being quite a happy and successful adventure. Sadly, the BFG also says she doesn't belong in Giant country, but not to fret. The Giant still hears her out after all of it. They share a tender moment together. But BFG remembers that he left his dream trumpet at Buckingham Palace, so Sophie takes the jar of nightmares and runs towards the sleeping Giants. Flesh Lump Eater wakes up before Sophie could open it, but she smashes the jar. Since the other Giants are sleeping, they all become disoriented from the Troggle Humper, but not Flesh Lump Eater. BFG distracts Flesh Lump Eater while Sophie makes a run for it.
Run, Sophie, run!
Soon the soldiers come to help BFG, and they capture up all the remaining Giants. Flesh Lump Eater was the last to be taken away, and they're all dropped to a very remote sea near a remote island. They're given vegetables and seeds to survive. Some time passes, and Sophie's woken up by Mary, looking like she resides at Buckingham Palace now. She claims that she had a nice dream, and she recalls the BFG making a new garden at Giant's country. Looks like BFG's having a nice life, because to this day, he still hears Sophie's whispers and greetings. He smiles at these greetings, and the rest is history. Put those dreams in your jars, because that's it for the BFG. What'd you guys think about this larger-than-life movie? Let us know in those comments below using that hashtag #CinemaRecap. This was The BFG by Walt Disney Studios, starring Mark Rylance, Ruby Barnhill, and Penelope Wilton. Until that next trip to Giant Country, see you real soon.